Here comes the moment where we're awkwardly sitting on live stream.
Good radio. That's good radio, everyone.
Yeah. You know that you've got a face for radio?
No, I've heard that saying, yes.
Okay, so it's not just a German. Hi! and we didn't really awkwardly sit around, we just awkwardly talked while being on live stream.
Yeah, I don't think people are unused to that, you know, especially when it's live.
Yeah, we can get away with a lot more technical difficulties.
We better should.
Okay, so to everyone who's already here, hi, thank you for joining us. And today's going to be a 2-for-1. We're going to do 2 talks today. And the first one is going to be about the Dark Eye. And this is Markus, who's the CEO of Ulisses Spiele and Ulisses Spiele North America.
True.
And who basically is the man who makes sure that there are books coming out for the Dark Eye.
He's the man. He's definitely the man.
Well, I'm usually only responsible for signing checks. But I heard that sometimes people really find that important.
You're also part of the design process. I caught you going over rules.
Yeah, well, I did that quite a lot because actually I was part of the design team for the original The Dark Eye 5th edition rules. And I was still involved heavily with the Compendium and the Aventurian Magic. But I had to just leave that team, and because I just didn't find the time anymore to do it. Even though I would have loved to continue, because I love working on role-playing game stuff. That's why I actually joined the industry.
Not to sign checks.
Yeah, well,
but to design games.
It came that there are also sometimes businessmen needed to really run a company, and therefore, well, somebody has to do the job.
Well, I can tell you with authority that his instincts on game design are very good. He has talked to me on several occasions about design and design choices, and he's always had some very insightful things to say. So I think the Dark Eye is very well off to have had him as part of the design team.
Thank you.
Feels good.
I'm probably getting a little bit red. But anyway, of course, you can continue talking. So
By the way,
more of that, please.
If you don't know him, this is Ross.
Hello.
And he actually still works as a game designer.
Which is also true. That's why sometimes I'm a little bit jealous.
Yeah, and he's here for 2 reasons. One of them is that the second talk we're going to have tonight is going to be about talk, especially about the Living Land, which is going to come up soonish. Soonish, and we're going to talk about Warhammer 40,000 Wrath and Glory.
Yes!
Naturally. Yes, we will.
And,
of course.
Yeah, Ross has been here for the last 6 months working on Wrath and Glory. And
on his German.
Yes.
And on my German, yeah.
Working on your German, which is coming along really, really nicely.
Thank you.
Actually.
Very kind of you to say.
And he knows all of the important German sayings.
Yes, he can order beer.
I can order beer, that's true.
And also, over the last 6 months, Ross has been forced to play the Dark Eye.
I have not been forced. I was invited to play it with you, actually, as the game master.
Yes.
So it was not a chore. The Dark Eye is actually a really it's an interesting game, and I enjoyed playing it. So
Okay.
I would play it again.
We just kind of took you and dropped you in the cold water, so to say.
Well, I was helped out a lot because Nikolai Hook, the what's his title?
He's actually the
lead designer. He'd helped me make my character. So my character for the Let's Play that we did was actually really, really good. It was suited exactly the kind of style of play that I like. So I had you could use the idea of me being thrown in the water, but I had a life preserver with me.
You could hold on to that.
Nice
Water wings.
learning to swim in the very, very deep pool that is the Dark Eye.
Yes.
When you're talking about liking the Dark Eye, what is that you actually like about it most? There's probably hundreds of things, including the rules, I guess. But what do you like most?
Well, okay, so there's...
You're fishing for compliments, Markus.
There's a lot of layers here. I don't think anybody who's ever seen The Dark Eye would argue with me when I say it's a beautiful game. First of all, the artwork is just outstanding. Every book cover, every character piece that you see, those are very meticulously well done. So on a visual standpoint, it is just beautiful.
Thanks to Nadine.
Yes.
Mostly thanks to Nadine, who's excellent. Yeah. But on top of that, what I found interesting about it was it has kind of a unique system of resolving dice rolls. you roll 3d20 and use the skills that are attached. The attributes that are attached to the individual skill, which is an interesting. It's an interesting way to resolve a task. I found that to be cool. But I think the third thing that really made me say, okay, this is worth more study and more interest, is the way that magic works. Because when you cast a spell, you can actually modify it right there on the fly.
Yes.
You can make several decisions when you cast a spell that change the way that spell works, which I think is really cool. I haven't really seen too many other games have that kind of depth of detail on a magic casting system. So that's something I really liked about it.
Did you also play with the Aventuria Magic?
No, I don't think we did. I think we were.
We played with Aventuria Magic 1.
We did? Okay.
Yes.
Well, because then I think there were kind of rules expansion that comes with that book that you probably love, because if you are learning a spell, that you can learn certain improvements for that spell,
right?
And you can pick and choose these on top of the modifications. So therefore even make it more of your style. That is how you cast that spell, Axe.
That's exciting. I like that.
So that is pretty interesting stuff, actually.
Yeah. And of course, the world is really rich and depth. It has a lot of depth of detail in it as well, which, again, playing with people like Meyer, who knows this setting very well, was a big help to me, because she was able to...
she's a wonderful GM. So.
Thanks. Funny thing is, I never feel like I actually know the Dark Eye very well, because there's always more to know, and there's always people who will know more, because there's a joke going around that you have to study it for like a master's degree.
It's been around a long time.
Well, if you want to know everything about the Dark Eye, that's probably not that far from the truth.
Yeah, you've got to read a lot. We're sitting in front of the wall of the Dark Eye.
And this isn't even all of it.
Yes.
So
it's just
don't be mistaken. We're missing the board games, right?
At least the board games, yeah.
There were a few board games.
And a couple of other 100 books.
When were those out? Late 80s?
The books?
No, the board games.
The board games. I think the first one was probably published sometime it was either late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure about that one. But they did publish 3 big ones, and they were more like the Hero Quest. It was a competitor product, actually, for the Hero Quest games.
And they look
awesome. It was big, and they have the miniatures inside and stuff, and they were aiming at kids, and so it was. It's one of these games that when you're from that age, you will always remember fondly, because it was one of these things that you probably got for Christmas, because it was a big box, and it was had a huge price tag attached.
Yeah, probably that's the reason why I never got those.
There's a term for that in board game design, the Christmas morning feeling, when you open it up and see all the things inside.
So. I love big game boxes. And
back in these days, those were very uncommon, actually. So anything that was bigger than, well, maybe that long and that wide was just unheard of. And this was a really big box.
Yeah.
You had a ton of miniatures and stuff. So it was really a good, I won't call it a rip-off product for, but it was it was. Yeah, well, it was a Me Too product.
Right.
It was a Me Too product. But I think it was a good one, because it was, I think it was better fitting for the German style of what the kids were looking for, what parents were looking for, opposed to what the more UK style Warhammer products look like. And I think that did a good job for getting a lot of new players into the Dark Eye.
I'm trying to orient myself somewhere. The timeline is weird, but
organizing that wall was mainly made for keeping the timeline straight. So this is all the adventures up there. And
here, these are the very first ones. Oh
yes.
Some of my very first memories with the game.
Yeah. The Black Boar. Yeah, well, that is a classic. That was the very first adventure actually published for the Dark Eye.
Yeah, the very first standalone adventure.
Yes.
In the first game box, there were also adventures.
Of course. Well, back in these days, that was still common, right?
Right. Now, Myri, what's your favorite?
Favorite?
Well, what's the one that you started with when you came into the Dark Eye that really, grabbed you?
Okay. Actually, it was those very first adventures in the game box. They kind of grabbed me and pulled me into this whole world, because I never played the role-playing game.
You played with the first edition?
I played with the first edition,
wow.
actually. My parents... yes, I've been around since the first edition.
OG!
I didn't play it when it came out. But my parents had one of these boxes. Someone gifted that to them because they like fantasy literature, and then people were like, this is probably for you. they never knew what to do with it, and at some point my brother and me, we just kind of started looking, what one is this, and we were totally hooked. One of my favorites is from the 3rd edition, Broga's Blood. That's a very classic dwarven story, but one, probably the one I spent most time with is, we've got it here. No, I can't open this.
No, you don't open this one.
The Filiasen saga.
Yeah, Filiasen
Yeah, well,
saga.
okay. No, this is one of the big campaigns.
I've heard of this one.
Oh, there's another one over there. Yeah.
All right,
Thank you. There's a lot of different editions of this because it's been around for quite some time, and this is one of the big campaigns that started to create a bit more background, a bit more things that were set for the past of the Dark Eye. I'm not saying this is perfect. Not at all.
Well, it's a child of its time actually, and it's back in these days, it's hard to believe it now when you look on all of the background, and I think it's not an overestimation to say now this is probably the largest and most deeply developed fantasy world. But
it started off with things like
back then there was in the early days there was nothing on background, because the very first box came along with almost no background at all, absolutely nothing.
The additional box, the second box, there's
the expansion rules. That was the very first book where you really had background on the continent,
right?
Because in the first box you didn't even know what the continent looked like, because it didn't have a picture for it.
But this campaign here is about exploration, right? It's about
we've got a map
journeying
here.
to the unknown.
Yeah, we've got a map here of Aventuria, of the main continent for the Dark Eye, and you see the travels that you have to undertake. That was, how did I put this? People relied heavily on puns for their names and ideas back then. So,
well, that's common in our industry.
In this adventure, you joined someone called Filiasen Fogwolf.
I see.
Do you have an idea where that name might
it sounds like Phineas Fogg. Yeah.
Whoa!
And he has to kind of traverse whole of Aventuria and come back home in 80 weeks.
And it's a race.
Nice.
Against someone else who's got the same quest.
But it went a long way of really showing you the continent.
Yes, it did. You go north and you go beyond the continent actually, and you go very far south, and there's lots of different settings, and it's got 12 chapters, 12 different adventures. And the thought behind it is that the main pantheon of the Dark Eye, or at least for Aventuria, has 12 gods.
The 12 gods, right? Okay, so
there's
each
one
adventure
chapter for each.
Okay.
Which means some of them are cool, really kind of in the classic sense cool, like fighting a sea snake, kind of an evil sea dragon thing, or at least get a skull. And when we played the adventure thinks that you are going to pick up one of those skulls in a special place where those creatures come to die. So they kind of cheat your way through.
Like an elf graveyard.
Yeah, because those are really hard to kill. But we had a dwarf in our group who was specializing in killing dragons, and he actually slayed one of them.
They are actually almost unkillable.
Yeah,
well,
he did.
That's kind of awesome, though. So this, I mean, would you say this campaign really succeeded at its goal of making it feel like a journey of exploration, because it went to all these different places?
Yeah, mostly. there's one chapter that is really kind of
burned in your brain.
Yeah, I'm never going to forget that. One of those chapters, it's about it's the chapter for the goddess of healing, and it's basically just you caring for a group of people who are suffering from the smallpox. And yes, you can also contract the smallpox.
Which isn't fun in that game.
No. It was us playing for several sessions, just caring for sick people, and that's not. It wasn't the most.
Okay,
fun
so maybe not all of them.
But some are really epic.
Okay.
And you end up beyond the world in the realm. It's basically Bernhard Hannen, the author of these. He's actually a pretty well-known, famous
back then
German author.
Back then
he wasn't.
He the Dark Eye really kind of like was his entry into being a novelist.
That's great.
Yeah, and he's very much into elves. He's got a series
like
of
there's a lot.
8 or 12 books about elves.
Very successful ones. They even are very successful in the States, of what I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Interesting.
Okay.
Well, absolutely.
I didn't know. Good for him.
Yeah.
Well,
More power to Bernard.
we were talking about that just lately, and he told me. So
Yeah.
probably some of the American players even know him by name.
So are there many of these large campaigns for the
Few.
Dark Eye?
I just wanted to come back, and because he loves elves, this is about discovering the background of the elves of Aventuria.
Ah.
And he set one of the iconic bad girls of the Dark Eye, Pardona, who is a very old, very powerful female elf who likes to walk around naked and create chimeras and has created her own race of dark elves and very
then.
high fantasy stuff. But she's back, and she's back to her old business right now in the Dark Eye.
Of what I heard, there might even be stuff coming up.
Hey.
Well, that is one of the main things, because everybody has always been asking for more information on her, because she's one of the most liked characters.
Yeah, she's one of the iconic villains who's still around.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because we've killed off a lot of them.
Well, in over 30 years, every now and then
Things change. Things change a little bit.
You have to kill some of them.
Yeah, and the thing is, we only played this as a prelude to kind of get the levels and the knowledge in the background to play the Borbaret saga.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, that one is...
So you went from saga to saga.
Yes, we never managed to play the Borbaret saga because people moved away and
It's really one of the things that probably everybody really always is looking forward on playing, because it's just the saga.
Really?
Yeah, but it's so huge that probably most groups never make it through to the end, because it's gigantic.
Yes.
What's it about? If this one's about exploration, what's the other one about?
It's about defeating a very old evil that keeps reincarnating again and again, and to finally put an end to it.
That sounds pretty cool.
While it's back to one of the most powerful, reincarnations and
It really starts the war over Aventuria, especially in the Midden Realm, and so it's really about saving the world in a way, as far as the Dark Eye goes, because the Dark Eye isn't heavy into these all epic things. It's not about saving the world every time.
But this one is. This is the epic one.
Well, not compared to if you play stuff like D&D. This is
no, it's more down to earth usually. But then you have things like
which is actually one of the features of the Dark Eye.
Right.
But this one really goes a long way into having something like a really world-shattering effect, in the sense of like a big invasion, and even after that saga finished, which was in the 90s actually, it still lasted until 1 or 2 years ago, until the
to mop up all of his followers who are still
to wrap it all up. So it's
they never got all of them.
They never got all of them, but of course, because some cool stories need to be told, but they're still open there. But at least now the Midden Realm starts to reclaim all of its lost provinces.
So that the events of that saga kind of reverberated for a long time in the setting. They caused ripples for a long time.
And this is also part of the Dark Eye, because it just doesn't go away in the sense of now, we saved the world, now let's go on. What's the next big thing? So
there's an old man in a tavern with a treasure map.
Which is, it's
There
much more
probably
realistic.
is somewhere, but if it's an old man with a treasure map in the Dark Eye, he's got a background that goes back to 1987.
Okay.
When he got the map from someone who was an adventurer.
Who went on the Filiasan saga.
Yeah, probably. He knew Filiasan or whatever.
Might well be possible, because most of the stuff is really entwined, so you can find Easter eggs forever if you're in the know. But that's one of the nice things, because if you don't know the details, it still feels very rich, but you don't have the feeling like you're missing stuff, because it's just like, oh my goodness, what a background.
Thing is, you can't bullshit your way through this. You can't write something and act like there's a lot of background, because people know this background
Exactly.
so well.
And he's talking about the depth of the world and all the history that's wrapped up in it. And I kind of absorbed a little bit of it, just sort of being on the fringe, working here. But every so often I find like a detail that makes me like say, wait, I have to know more. And one of these details was, is it true that some of the witches are actually born from eggs?
Yes.
Okay, see that was like a what? Wait, okay, all right, interesting. Yes, apparently they are the best witches are born from eggs.
They never age.
Yeah.
Well, after a certain point, I mean, they'd have to.
Yeah, well,
they'd have to grow up.
They grow up like to 25.
Yeah, and then they
just
stop aging.
stay
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Which is pretty. I mean, and that's not only just a legend. It's not only just part of the world. You can actually take that as a background for your character
Yeah.
and play one of those characters, which
You
is really
can play
cool.
an egg-hedged witch, which sounds a lot weirder in English.
Well,
It did make me stop and go,
actually, in German it sounds as weird, but we're used to it.
Eingeborene Hexe.
Come on, that doesn't sound like a normal word you're using, does it? No, actually.
It works, yeah. But the German language is forgives you for creating new words because it does it all the time. So
But this is what I'm talking about. Is like you can just find one little thing and it'll turn into
we could probably
an
talk
interesting
about
thread that
all
leads
these
to all this.
things
Yeah,
for the next half an hour, no
Yeah.
problem. Because there's so much information available on that.
absolutely.
For instance, I love how the whole background for Borberat, who was this big evil guy who came back in the Borberat saga and had to be defeated
really?
once and for all. Yeah. Why there are still people who have been called heptarchs, who have been around, who were kind of his heirs and who had their own states where they raised the undead or made hellish machines and things like that, is because he had a crown with 7 horns, spikes, there's different names for it, and that broke apart. And then there were people who picked up one of those and were then specialized in a certain kind of demonic magic. But this so 7-pronged
Horn
demonic
is better.
or horn
Horn is very much better.
7-horn crown is just the downgraded version of the 13-horn crown that was used by someone else.
Wow.
And so you can kind of follow the line of evil guys back through
The ages, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Down to it in that sense, it has a lot in common with Lord of the Rings things, because you have different ages, and really
just a lot less singing. Sorry.
Actually, I don't want to see anybody working on the stuff thing. I always hated that with a lot of Rings. I must admit that, because reading through these books and
Sir, we
reading
have
all
to disagree there.
well, that might be possible, but actually, when I read through most of these novels.
All right, so you heard it here first. Confirmed. Lord of the the Dark Eye a cappella.
Wow,
Glee Club version coming soon.
Actually, no kidding. We did a very long LARP campaign with the Dark Eye background, and there was a hardcore fan base, kind of the people who were part of this campaign, and they wrote a musical version.
No kidding.
Yes, and yeah, well, they mostly took songs that were already in existence and then just filked it, basically. But there are songs
That's
about.
still awesome. I love to hear people sing if they can sing good. But actually, what I just wanted
none
to
of
say.
your lead designers.
Well, actually, I never asked them to sing. Maybe I should do that.
There's not a lot of overlap betwing songwriting and game
Ross.
design, I have to say.
How's your singing skills?
I don't even want to start.
I'll sing here.
I sing in the shower, and that's probably the only place I should ever sing.
All right.
But if I was playing a bard in the Dark Eye, let's just say if I was playing a bard in the Dark Eye.
Which kind of bard? There's a lot of different kinds.
See? But if I was playing a type of bard that sang, I would definitely want to know what I was singing. I wouldn't just say, well, I sing a song. I would be like, I sing a song about, maybe I sing a song about Philiason. Maybe I sing a song about, the 12 gods. But I might also want to write something out as like, my song is not just about a thing, but here's some of the lyrics and things like that. So I think there's a place for that understanding of music.
Actually, there are even songs in the Dark Eye. Nope.
And there's also there's people who have recorded those.
Oh
there's
my gosh,
also
okay.
Unofficial songbooks with lots of lyrics and texts. And
Wow.
There are official ones and non-official ones, of course, and there's a lot of non-official stuff. That is why we started with the Scriptorium.
The Scriptorium, of course, yeah.
And now that is something that was pretty interesting, because we started last year, and we just were a little bit hesitant to really do it, because if it hadn't been accepted by the community, that would have been a gigantic lose of face for us, actually. Like,
right.
Hey, here, there's the possibility to create your own stuff if you want to. Well,
No one does.
We don't know. We don't want to.
Someone rolls a tumbleweed through there.
But we just counted the stuff lately that is in the scriptorium.
How much is how many
and
things?
It's over 180
Wow.
downloads in the scriptorium.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
So that was something that really surprised me to no end, because I would have been astounded if it had been 100, but it's almost double that.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's a lot more around on the internet, on forums like Orkenspata and things like that, who have been around long before the scriptorium, and they operate under a different set of rules. They're Of course, they're not allowed to use the official rules and no illustrations like you are allowed in the scriptorium, but there's thousands of downloads at Orkenspata.
Yeah, come on, it's over 30 years of history.
If I could,
you can find anything.
If I can use the illustrations that you guys create, there's no contest. I'm going to scriptorium.
Well, we have the art package.
Right, this is what I'm saying.
Layout package. We have the map package.
Right.
So
why wouldn't you? Is what I'm saying. Because the artwork is so
some
great.
of these things are really fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's really impressive how much work and love the writers really put into it.
See, I'm just too lazy to do that.
That's why I have people for that. You know?
I type up like a bare bones PDF and that's it. I don't need. And yeah.
So, what was your worst experience with the Dark
Yeah.
My worst The Dark Eye
That's a good
experience. Was that even with an official adventure? Of course, when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, we played a lot of The Dark Eye, but we didn't have the money to buy all those adventures, so we wrote a lot of the stuff ourselves. So I guess my worst adventures were
one of the homebrews.
were of the homebrews, and with a certain mindset among some of the game masters. In the olden times, every spell in the Dark Eye had a rhyme going with it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And one of my game masters insisted
That you had to say the rhyme out loud?
That you had to say the rhyme out loud, and no matter what you rolled, if you botched the rhyme.
That's hardcore.
That's actually what we do when we are doing the Dark Eye First Edition Let's Plays.
Really?
Yes, of
That's
course.
the
I always insist on it because that's part of the rules. Come on. That's not my fault.
I'm sure Mishael loves that. I'm sure that's his favorite part.
Thing is, there's a spell that takes another spell and reverses what it does. It's called the Revisalis.
Yeah, and you have to spell it backwards.
Yes, and you have to say the Revisalis spell, and then you have to say the spell that you want to reverse in reverse.
Wow.
Yeah, not just the words, the letters.
That can be a real tongue breaker.
Yeah, no kidding.
So if you use that and a spell that usually ignites something into flame to put out a fire, it's Reversales Revidum, Zauberwirkung, dreh dich Fotz, der Tot Enner.
Wow.
And
Wow.
And that's only gibberish. So
Wow. That's crazy. Now, I love immersion, right? Like I love the idea of being in the game as much as possible.
But there's always one step too far.
That's a step too far, I think, probably require people to memorize it backwards. Wow.
Yeah, and
that is crazy. I can't believe you still remember that now. That's
that was kind of
I would say that's kind of hardwired by now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh yes. and you can play so many different kinds of mages in the Dark Eye. That character I learned that for started out in 3rd edition, and then we had to change to 4th, and she couldn't do anything anymore because 4th was very more restrictive with experience points and things like that. But
yeah, it's always hard to really make a good transition from edition to edition.
And she was specializing in transforming non-living objects.
That's very
specific. Yeah, from Mirham. So there's a lot of different major schools in Aventuria, and everyone is specializing in something different. And so she could only do things that usually are no use at all to anything.
Right, but that was something personal that you picked for your guy.
Yes,
so.
that I did. And then you had to get very creative. So someone's on fire, I try to put out the fire, so I have to reverse the igniting things spell.
Nice.
So, yeah, probably botching a lot of spells because I didn't get the rhymes right.
I don't think I heard that right. I don't think
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm still scarred today. Thanks, I don't think he's watching. Thanks to Markus.
Well,
Yeah. Worst experience I had with some of the old stuff. I think it was Borberat's Curse.
Oh yeah, which actually starts the whole Borberat saga.
Okay,
in a way.
So what's
in a way,
Barbara's
in a
Curse
way.
about?
It's a solo adventure, actually. Yes, it's a solo adventure.
Okay.
And it's one of those weird things that are from the very early days of the Dark Eye. Because when the Dark Eye started, nobody in Germany knew anything about role-playing games. And it's from the early 80s. It's from 84, I think, still. It might be 85, but then it's early 85. And the adventure is about you chasing down the curse of Borberat, because you know that Borberat used to be a mage back in the days, etc., etc. But what comes out in that adventure is that you're entering his citadel that turns out to be a crashed starship.
Oh, Amari told me a little bit about this. This was written by a guy who was known to be a science fiction
he didn't like fantasy.
writer. Yeah?
He was more of a science fiction writer.
He was more science fiction writer, and that's why he slipped that into that. It's a little bit of
but
the
it's
old
classic now.
It's classic, actually,
Yeah.
like John Carter Mars and stuff, where fantasy and science fiction are more intertwined. But in for the Dark Eye, it just did fit the whole. That was like you're playing the Lord of the Rings, and all of a sudden you are having an adventure where you enter an old starship.
Well, this is
It's got an epic cover.
for D&D fans, you know, Expedition Beyond the Barrier Peaks.
Yeah,
is the
right.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. I think it's probably because of the same spirit, because these adventures were written by people that were pretty used to this kind of fantasy science fiction thing. So it was more like the same thing.
But
for
it
them.
totally doesn't fit the Dark Eye.
But it doesn't fit it, and it was retconned.
well, at the time-
It was retconned later. So now Borberat is living in a starship. So you have the robots and stuff. I also remember that one. It has a totally endless entry story.
The introductions of that author, Hans-Joachim Alpers.
Wow, that is quite a bit of
And
introduction.
that is a solo adventure. Come on, you know how long it took me when I bought this adventure I was 12.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. It was not like I couldn't read, but I wanted to get into the action. That's why I bought this solo adventure. And I still remember riding in the back of my dad's car, and because I bought this adventure and I wanted to start playing it right away, and it took me all the right back. Read through even the introduction of it.
It's
until
lengthy.
I could even start. So that was
What drove me
really-
absolutely
that's-
crazy. We did a kind of an experiment. We let's played this last year, I think, and it was like one person read out the paragraphs and the decisions, and then the group decided what to do.
you made it a group adventure.
Yeah, kind of. And what absolutely drove me nuts is that every door has its own paragraph. And
Wow.
you lose your orientation, your sense of orientation really fast, really. And it only says, at some point then it only says, do you want to go east or west from the door? And it was like, I didn't know where I came from. And then you go back to the same place where you've been, and then you go back to the door. I kept screaming at the adventure at some point. And thing was, we were on a convention, and the star guest was Mark Reinhagen of World of Darkness fame.
Nice.
And he was there promoting I Am Zombie and to drink scotch. And he came back from a tour through Limburg, which was the closest city, and they showed him the medieval city centre. And
Which is really great to see.
Yes.
As an American.
and the Scotch bar.
Ah.
So
Which was even better.
Mark Reinhagen came back slightly drunk, to put it like that. And he slightly. He came back and was like, "What are you doing?" And we were playing a solo adventure, just we're kind of improvising a group adventure out of it. And, yeah, can I join? Yeah, of course. Rules are easy. We're actually not really playing with the rules. And what followed was a half an hour of Mark Reinhagen bitching about the game design and then falling asleep at the table.
Well, you know how they say doctors make the worst patients? Sometimes game designers make the worst players. I've been in that situation where I've sat down to play something and I find myself analyzing the design rather than just getting into the game. So.
That's one of the things that sometimes bother me too when I'm playing a game and all of a sudden I start without even thinking about it really. I peel back the skin that I enjoy and take a look at the mechanics and
pull back the curtain and take a look. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, really now? Oh,
Now, you said something to me earlier that I found really interesting. How many writers have there been for the Dark Eye over the years?
Over all these years, it's actually over 1,000.
1,000. More than 1,000 writers have contributed to this setting. That's really amazing. That's like a milestone.
Well, you have to remember one thing here, because it's not like all of these have written complete adventures or something, but we have the Aventurian Herald.
Right.
And the Aventurian Herald as being the newspaper, the in-game newspaper that has really probably has been the driving force behind this history being really like laid out in the detail that we know it now. Because without the Aventurian Herald, it would have been more like this spotlight, adventure here, adventure there, but it would not have been this really gigantic, consistent storyline.
Right.
And
the Herald ties it all together.
It ties it all together, and it really tells the story, even the story and the history that isn't all important. And for this magazine, so many people have written, because there are hundreds of people that have written one single passage and one little article in one of those Aventurian Heralds, and the Aventurian Herald has now we are almost at 200, issue 200. So that's so many.
That's pretty great. But I mean, even if you put that aside and say, just look at the authors of the novels and adventures, that's still a lot. And the Herald I would say the Herald is not something that you would put aside. I think the Herald is actually really important, because the way you describe it definitely sounds like it's something that if you really truly love Aventuria, love the setting of the Dark Eye, then the Herald is a really important part of that, because like you say, it's the connecting tissue between all the different
no question about it. We still have hundreds of people, maybe even thousands. It's not like we have total numbers of it, but there were a whole lot of people that are still having a subscription for the Herald, only to continue reading it like you would get your normal newspaper.
That's great.
They're not active players anymore.
They're not playing anymore, but they still enjoy reading the magazine and seeing how the history continues.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and history continues, and people can also kind of change the history. Well, one of the new things is the Kaiser Raoul Convent, where people are part of a meta decision for how things are going to change for the next year of the Dark Eye.
And it gets the players in, and you can really be part of it.
I think people who love the Dark Eye need to hear more about the Kaiser Raoul Convent sometime, because it's pretty amazing.
Well, maybe we should do something like that in the States too.
Yeah, you're leaving us before it happens.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I will not get a chance to experience it. But it sounds amazing.
But it's not a problem. We can tell you about it.
Okay.
And we can talk about Kaiser Raoul Convent next time we are doing this, because we are planning to do these regularly.
Sure.
And at a time which is quite late here in Germany, so people overseas have a chance to be part of the live stream.
Thanks for joining in the first place, guys.
Yeah.
So, and if you have any questions or things you would want to know about and that you would love us to talk about, because like we said before, we can talk forever, and even about minute details. And so if you tell us what you want to hear about, we can go into detail there and see what is interesting to you.
Just yesterday I had a discussion with someone what kind of images would be perfect for a robe from a very special region of Aventuria, and it lasted about an hour.
Wow.
So,
maybe we shouldn't...
Robe, dress.
Robe.
Maybe we shouldn't...
Not a rope, a robe.
Maybe we shouldn't go into that
detail
just yet. Give us another 100 or 200.
Well, butterflies have a very special meaning on Madagascar, but
they do.
I'll leave it at that. So also thank you for joining us for this part, Ross, and we're going to be back with Ross pretty soon. We're going to cut the live stream now,
right?
Send Markus home,
well,
or at least to
Send me to the couch.
somewhere-
I know. Well,
somewhere where you can
you want to get
relax
me
a
out.
little bit.
Okay, I see it. Take care.
And
Have
then
a
we're
good
going
one.
to talk about Torque, Eternity, and about Warhammer 40,000 Wrath and Glory.
That's right.
Rest and glory.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. Thank you, Marcus.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
See you.